Again, with your point as to like, if they raise their prices, is that still a tax? Well, I think it's a cost of living like bump, right? Like it's a cost of living like increase for everyone, which is not good, right? Like because you want your cost of living to go down. It's a cost of living increase when like prices raise even for alcohol. And I understand your arguments about like, we shouldn't be encouraging people consuming alcohol. But a lot of people aren't just like binge drinkers and like most people, the vast majority of people don't drink and drive. The vast majority of people, they go to LCBO and they buy like a bottle of vodka or like a bottle of wine, and then they like enjoy it over dinner and stuff like that. And this is like, uh, if you raise the price of that, I understand that alcohol is not a necessity. You don't need to drink it. But it's kind of like if you increase the price of like, sparkling water, right? Like I'm drinking sparkling water. This is not alcoholic, by the way, uh, because I can't get alcoholic drinks anyways because LCBO is on strike. But like, if you raise the price of sparkling water, then that's gonna raise the cost of living, like in general, because I don't know if it's counted in CPI or maybe it's not, but like it'll get reflected in people's budgets if you just raise the price of random stuff, like grocery items, even if it's not absolutely necessity, like bread and butter and stuff like that. So this is just my opinion, and yeah, let me give you like one more opportunity to respond, and then I think I've like already uh, kind of been a broken record and made the similar points repeatedly. So
Yeah.
I won't speak any more on this. I'll let you respond, and then maybe we'll can just agree to disagree.
I think one thing that may be a factor that we're really considering is that I think the areas that we grew up in were very different. And in my area, drunk driving was very common. I would say that probably 30% of people at least that I knew, like I knew of at least 30% of people who were drinking and driving on a regular basis. And a lot of people also to follow the whole, oh, you've had a beer, it's no big deal. Oh, you've had two beers, it's no big deal. Except they don't actually track it in such a way that maybe they're just buzzed in driving, but functionally it's a similar scenario where they are increasing the risks for everyone involved. And I think that it's just, I think that drunk driving in particular is just something that is, if you don't really see or hear about it all that frequently, but it's one of the, like it's very common in Canada and the states, but in Canada it's very common, um, particularly in like North America because of the fact that there's basically no public transit. So a lot of people will go to a house or a party or whatever, and they have a couple drinks, and then they drive home because how else are they getting home? And that's the kind of thing where there's a lot of drunk drivers on the road, and so like in my experience, the the fact that every single time I was driving on Friday, I was on edge. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, anytime near nighttime, I was on edge because the odds that there was a drunk driver in my vicinity were like relatively high. I think that fact does make it something that is more front of mind for me because I knew like I literally had to haul people out of a car that was crashed from a drunk driver. So it's like a little bit more jarring. So I just think it's like um one of those things that's like not talked about as much. And I think in that regard, um maybe that's why it's more front of mind because like it's for me at least because like it's not just the people who are drinking and driving who are going to get arrested and in trouble. In fact, most of them don't get in trouble. most of the drunk drivers make it home. The problem is that when there's a car accident, more often than not, or maybe not more often than not, but frequently, a drunk driver has been involved. So it is just a big risk. Anyway, that's kind of the one point I wanted to make about, I think we're coming at it from different perspectives on that front, because I do know you grew up more so in a city where you could go home with your own two legs.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Aurora, Ontario, and I think like I'm really not trying to brag here, but just as a matter of fact, Aurora is one of the richest neighborhoods in all of Canada, as far as I'm aware. It's got to be like top 10 at the very least. So I think that's uh, back in Aurora when I was growing up, like it's definitely a different experience than what you described where you grew up, Tristan. So I think, yeah, as you said, maybe our anecdotal like kind of stories, our personal experiences kind of shape our viewpoints to this front. So eh, when I was like when I first got my license, I never like really even thought about like when is it like safe to drive, or when are you more or less likely to encounter a drunk driver. So like that just wasn't a thing like in my head, right? And it's still really like not a thing now. I no longer live in Aurora, but like yeah, I mean even if I live relatively close to Aurora still, so if I were to like drive there I wouldn't like think about that. But again, as you said, it's like it's personal experiences, right? And I can respect that. I understand that we're shaped by our personal experiences. But yeah, just maybe a tiny little caveat at the end. I do think that we should maybe like consider like because there is a little bit of nuance in the whole drunk driving thing, because like there's a legal limit to where you could drive if you have like a little bit of alcohol in your blood, and you have a G license, right? So in Ontario, are like the legal limit is 0.05 for or below. If you have a G license, you have to have a full G license because that's like the full license. If you, and for G2 is like the kind of the learner's license, you can't have any alcohol in your blood. But if you have a full G license, you can have up to 0.05 and still be allowed to drive. So like if you were pulled over and you like they breathalyzed you and you blew under zero point zero 0.05, you uh, you would still be allowed to drive home after. I don't know if they would give you a ticket or not. I don't think so. But if you're between like 0.05 to zero point zero 0.08, then I think they would issue you a ticket. If you're above 0.08, then you get a DUI and you get like arrested, and it's like the really bad tier, right? So I think what you said about like people who have like a few beers and they drive home, like maybe they're above 0.05, and I guess your argument is that well they can't know for sure, so they probably shouldn't be driving because it's not like they carry around a breathalyzer and they didn't test themselves. I understand that, but I'm just saying there's a little bit of nuance to that, where if you do meet someone who had a beer or something at a dinner party, it's not necessarily automatically that they're for sure not able to drive, because it's not like it's not zero alcohol versus some alcohol. It's zero alcohol versus under zero point zero 0.05 and versus under zero point zero 0.08. So that's kind of like the little bit of nuance that I just wanted to bring up. But yeah, Tristan, if you want to respond to that, I'll give you a chance. And then after that, we can maybe end the show.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say is that just because the law thinks that that's how much alcohol you are fine to drive with, doesn't mean that they know anything. I mean, we've roasted the legal the um, policymakers enough to know that they don't know a lot about a lot of things. But either way, the way that that amount of alcohol affects one person is going to be different from another person, and it's also nuance wise, there's a lot of variables that come into effect on how much alcohol content you have in your body. right? So if you have one beer on an empty stomach, you're going to have a lot more of an impact from that beer than if you had, one beer on all you can eat sushi night, like,
Yeah, but the
so.
0.05, like it measures the amount of alcohol that's already in your blood, so it should theoretically already account for that, right? Because like if you're on an empty stomach and the alcohol gets absorbed more quickly, then your blood alcohol content goes up more quickly too. So it's not, we're not measuring the amount of alcohol you consumed, we're measuring the amount of alcohol that's already in your blood.
Right. But also, another aspect of that is that it's not necessarily all consumed right at once, which means that you can get behind the steering wheel as someone who is not too drunk to drive. And then as you're driving, become drunker as your body metabolizes the alcohol to the point where you are now no longer safe to drive. Right. So there's a lot of, just in general, it's like it's not a good time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So maybe I guess your argument is that like we shouldn't allow like any tolerance in blood alcohol content, like in terms of driving at all. Is that where your, is that what your stance is?
Not necessarily like none, because like there's a lot of things that can give you a very small amount of alcohol that you won't necessarily think of, like if you have like Bailey's chocolate, for instance, that has alcohol in it, right? So it's not quite zero, but I think that having it having it low and incentive and well, not incentivizing, but encouraging people to not drive on after they've had any alcohol is probably like the ideal. It's just that we don't have people drink and then drive, and in that case that should reduce the number of drunk drivers. But obviously that's remains to be seen how effective telling people to drink less and not drive after drinking actually is in practice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't argue with that. I totally agree with you on that. And like, just as a disclaimer, I hardly ever drink alcohol, and like I know for me, it does get like it all goes to my face. Really, I have Asian red face, right? It's like I'm not sure if you know this, but it's literally like a condition. It's called Asian glow or Asian red face. It's like it affects like a third of all East Asians, where for someone like me who has that condition, my body's missing like a certain enzyme or something where it doesn't break down the alcohol as fast without that enzyme, and my body just doesn't produce it. So it's like I get drunk faster, and then also like my like blood vessels, and especially in like my face and like hands and like extremities, it dilates more so that I get like super red. And like if you think I'm super red now, I had zero alcohol. This is non-alcoholic, right? 0%. Let me just make that clear. And I'm like getting a little bit red just from speaking, from getting worked up. So if I have any alcohol at all, then I'll just look like a tomato. So yeah, I'm totally for like just not like this is the rule that I have. Like I don't drink any alcohol if I'm within like 3 or 4 hours of like being expected to drive or anything like that. So
Yeah, I have a similar policy.